Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to All in Texas Football, and welcome back to Football Theory. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, pleased to be joined by my good friend, esteemed colleague, Jeff Howe. Today, we'll talk about this offense, really. It's kind of going to be a multifaceted conversation. I got a question that I'll start out with to ask Jeff, and then we'll go from there. We'll talk about this Texas offense now that they've assembled this really impressive collection of talent. I got a question for Jeff about it, and then we'll talk about what this Texas offense can achieve in 2026. This edition of On Texas Football brought to you by accomplished Austin realtor Laura Baker. We'll tell you a little bit more about Laura Baker coming up later on in the program. We appreciate Laura Baker always sponsoring Football Theory. She's been down since day one, so we appreciate Laura Baker. All right, here's my question for you, Jeff. Simple question about this collection of talent now Texas has. Really explosive backfield with Hollywood Smothers and Relief Brown, Cam Coleman, number one skill player coming out of the transfer portal. You still got Ryan Wingo, who was your number one last year, but now he's the number two in his offense, and that's a hell of a number two, all SEC caliber number two receiver. And McMosey's going to be a number three. Arch Manning, a lot of people are projecting to be not only a first-round pick, could be the number one quarterback taken overall, which usually means you're in the conversation to be the number one overall pick in the draft. A lot of talent on this Texas team after this portal cycle. This is the question. This is the best, most impressive collection of talent on offense for Texas since
I would say 2024, but here's my hope. I'll answer your question, Rod, with more of a statement, right? My hope is that we get to see Texas be as injury-free as possible. Because my hang up with the 2023, really the 2023 offense, but even the 2024 offense, we never got to see those offenses click the way they were supposed to click because of injuries. Like I go back to it all the time. Like in 23, Quinn gets hurt in the middle of the year, and while he's out and Malik Murphy's at quarterback, Sark fine. He really starts to trust Jonathan Brooks in the run game. And then when Quinn comes back, you're thinking, oh man, this offense is going to set the world on fire. And the game where Quinn comes back, Jonathan Brooks blows his knee out and is done for the year. And in 24, between Quinn's injuries and Isaiah Bond had the ankle, and he never really got after he got hurt in the SEC championship game, never really got right after that. Matthew Golden was banged up at the end of the year. Your running back situation started off bad when CJ Baxter got hurt before the year started. So if healthy, this I think is going to be the best collection of offensive talent Sark has had. Now with the 23 and 24 teams, you got the caveat that look at all the draft. You had multiple draft picks on the offensive line with both of those offenses.
O-line was better. Yeah.
Basically, the 2024 offensive line was the 2023 line, except you're swapping out Christian Jones and Cam Williams. You're swapping those two guys out. But all those guys, everybody on that line except Jake Major, DJ Campbell probably is going to be drafted. So if he is, it'll be everybody on those offensive lines except Jake Majors will be drafted. We'll see what happens with this line. But, Rod, I think it's going to be the best collection of just pure talent Sark has ever had since he's been at Texas.
Yeah, the O-line, you're right about. There's no question. O-line was more impressive with some of the previous offenses that Sark has had. And I think you've already talked about that 2023 offense, I believe, is the highest scoring of the Sark offenses so far. You probably would think it was might be 2024, but no, it's actually 2023. 2024 was your best all-around team just because of your complementary football you had. Your defense was elite and dominant, helped you out a lot there. But no, it's interesting because, and this is the thing I think really intrigues me, is if it is, we're talking about this being the best collection of talent for Sark. How is the offense going to evolve, and how is it going to change so that you can maximize each of these pieces? And that's what I'm really interested to see.
I think that's going to be, these last 2 years, I think, are the most challenging for Sark for very different ways. 25 was challenging because you had so many hiccups and you had to try to figure out what was your identity. And especially, quite frankly, as bad as Arch was in some of those non-conference games, like, man, is your quarterback going to be right? And you can't really lean on your run game. So what are you going to do? So I think Sark had to really go back to the drawing board. Now you could argue that he probably should have been more prepared for hiccups going into the year. But, once you're in the thick of it, it's like, all right, what are you going to do to get out of it? And eventually you got out of it. I think it's going to be challenging, Rob, because why I say this is the most collection of talent, I don't know that you probably don't have, outside of Cam Coleman, you don't have a guy like a Bijan Robinson or an Xavier Worthy where they just have this like some otherworldly like X-Man ability. With Bijan, it was just his versatility and just his natural feel for the game and his game breaking ability. and Xavier Worthy. And later we found out AD Mitchell, like you got like legit, like top of the line, top end speed with both those guys. In Xavier Worthy's case, it's world class speed. I don't know that you've got like multiple first round, no doubt type guys, but I think just the depth you've got, we talk about like Emmett Mosley's your number 3 receiver, and we're not even talking about anybody else, Khalil Lockett or the Dede McCutcheon, anybody like that could potentially emerge. Running back, Hollywood Smothers, who I maintain is you couldn't have found it for a running game that Sark likes with a wide zone run game where you're wide zone dependent, and that's predominantly what you're going to do. Couldn't have found a better guy than Hollywood Smothers. I think Raleek Brown's skill set's so unique. Derek Cooper's going to have a role on this team. Everybody, myself included, were waiting to see, okay, what are you going to do with Michael Terry? Nick Townsend's emergence at tight end. Michael Masunis is going to be a part of this thing if he can be the kind of inline blocker you need him to be. So I think you might not have the couple of like high-end pieces, like I said, with the exception of Cam Coleman that you've had in the past, but I think you're deeper at some of these position groups top to bottom than you've been.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And just kind of looking at like different ways that you envision Sark utilizing certain pieces, like the example of Emmett Mosley in the slot fade. Totally agree. I think it's money. This is something we haven't seen a lot from Sark in his offenses that you may see him increase in terms of the rate and frequency of it. I think something you may see a lot more that you don't see in Sark's offenses is the all verts concept.
Yeah.
With 4 verts, because now you've got a Cam Coleman that can take that safety and force that safety to have to get over the top sideline. You can do Ryan Wingo on the other side. All right. Then you can throw in Emmett Mosley, big slot inside, kind of run that seam, and then take your Nick Townsend and bring back the seam route that you had with JT Sanders a little bit and bring back that seam concept. Having that threat over the top, you had it when you had Xavier Worthy as well. That's going to take that safety usually deeper over the top of that outside receiver. And if you have it configured the right way, you can kill him with that seam route. Or you can, like I said, 4 verts opens you up to a beautiful scramble drill. Because you take it, everybody's going to drop. If they don't drop, if they're not dropping 6, 7 guys back in coverage, well, I'm gonna have a matchup that I like on those 4 verts. But if they do drop everybody back, cover the 4 verts, well, that means that's going to be green grass and alleys for one of the best scrambling quarterbacks, guy averaging, I think Pro Football Focus has him over 10 yards per scramble. When I narrow it down to power 14, he's over 9 yards per scramble. Still pretty damn good, 11 yards per attempt scramble. So 4 verts, anytime they run those deep concepts, those are often his best scramble drill concepts because he needs to get a little bit of time in the pocket to watch the pass rush decay. All right. And guys be undisciplined in their rush lanes and then watch the second level and third level of defense drop back far enough where it gives him green grass. So
I think,
I would bring it back.
No, I'm with you, Rod. And the other aspect of that, too, it's kind of underrated. You look at what Hollywood Smothers did in the pass game at NC State because he played with a guy who was a scrambler and could be a +1 in the run game with CJ Bailey. Now, obviously, the throwing ability Arch has takes his ability as a +1 in the run game and extra hat to another level. But Hollywood Smothers at NC State, and again, I said they left a little meat on the bone with him, just going back and watching some of their games, watching some, extended highlights and things like that. I felt like they left some meat on the bone with him in the pass game, but a lot of the stuff he did was checkdowns and just being the safety valve. But when you got a scrambling quarterback, man, if you can just make, it used to be back in the option days, Rod, you maintain pitch relationship, right? Now I think it's in when you can spread people out and you've got a scrambler like Arch, you almost want to maintain, I don't know if you want to call it scramble relationship, but hey, let me kind of keep myself available to where when my quarterback scrambles, if they do decide to spy or with a linebacker or a safety or drop an edge or whatever, and all of a sudden Arch starts to scramble and there's somebody in his way, now I'm wide open for the check down, boom. And then you've got Hollywood Smothers with the ball in his hands with umpteen yards of open field in front of him. Man, that's a win all day, every day for your offense. Yeah, no, I just said, and Sark doesn't run it. I think they probably run 4 verts or all verts, less than 2% of the time. They just not one of the concepts you see a lot in Sark's offense. But with this personnel, I can see it. Sark doesn't do a ton of double moves with guys. But now with
two weapons that can hurt you deep, and the best deep contested catch receiver in college football, or at least the one with the best catch rate on deep contested targets, and the most receptions on deep contested targets in Cam Coleman. Double moves also will help you. I mean, that I think Ryan Wingo is actually be maybe more effective with him because teams are going to focus on trying to stop his yak ability. So I think the double moves is something I think you could get coming back into the offense a little bit. Something else that I think and we haven't seen as much of, I don't think with Arch as the quarterback, and maybe it's because Arch has had some trouble at times hitting guys on the move on crossing routes.
Right. Yeah.
The deep rainbow crossers, that like that Yankee wave concept where you got one guy's running the deep over route, and then on the other side, it's either another deep over route to intersect, or it's a post corner on the other side or a corner post on the other side.
Did a lot. It was a staple in his Alabama offenses.
Yes, and he ran it a ton early on with X-Man, and also he ran it a lot early on with X-Man and those receivers, but we haven't seen as much. And I think it's probably because Arch, that's not a strength in his game, is throwing guys open on those crossroads. We've seen him miss a few of those actually. Yeah. Throughout the season, and maybe he improves on that. But man, with a Ryan Wing, can you imagine Ryan Wingo and a Cam Coleman on those? Yeah. And
yeah, you mentioned the double moves, and I think part of that is I hate to keep going back to the running backs, but like your run game with Hollywood Smothers leading it, and then again, I don't know what role Relique Brown is going to play in this, but I'm fascinated to see because Arizona State used him in a number of ways. Like they used him as like a legit receiver. They sent him in motion, kind of a fulcrum in their offense. And, with Smothers, I think, yeah, you can get the running backs involved in the pass game. That's one way you can do it. But your RPO game should be a lot better because teams now have to respect your ability to run the football.
That's true.
They didn't have to do that at times last year. So I think that's going to help open up windows for Arch. Like you said, he got better as the year went on at hitting guys on the move. Now he still wasn't, I don't think, where he wants to be or probably where he should be, but from where he was at the start of the year to where at the end, like he at least got to the point where competent. I feel like he was competent at being able to hit guys on the run, but he's much better at throwing to a stationary target and hitting guys on the run. I think you can really get back to having routes for the backs in this offense. Like last year, we didn't see the wheel or the rail out of the backfield a ton. That was a staple concept. Sark ran the heck out of that route. I mean, how many touchdowns did Bijan score or explosive plays did Bijan have on a wheel route or a rail route? Because, your hard play action, you're getting him loose down the sideline. Yeah. Smothers and Brown can both run that. That Jaden Blue, the angle route, the Texas route, somebody called a Falk route because, Marshall Falk, Mike Mark ran the heck out of it with Marshall Falk, greatest show on turf. That route can come back with either of those guys, Brown or Smothers, can run that Texas route. So I think just getting the backs involved in the passing game, Rod, is going to be, and we're getting back to the conversations we had in 23 and 24 regarding personnel groupings where, okay, you're deep enough at running back and you're deep enough at wide receiver to where you shouldn't be obligated if you're Sark to try to force 12 personnel on the field. It could, if it doesn't benefit, it might benefit you more to have Emmett Mosley or Relique Brown or fill in the blank receiver, fill in the blank running back. It might benefit you more on offense to have one of those guys on the field rather than the extra tight end. So I think expediting the development of Nick Townsend is going to be huge. And I think he's an underrated guy because you don't think about like an inline blocking tight end. It's not a sexy pickup in the portal, but if Masunas can be the inline blocker that this staff recruited him to be, then I think you almost have to use 12 personnel at that point. And then you get into the whole discussion of, hey, the more things we do well, the harder we are to defend. Well, if you can attack a defense effectively out of 12 personnel, 11 personnel, the pony package, whatever, this could be the most diverse Sark has been, Rod, in terms of personnel groupings that we've seen him be.
He has gotten less diverse as time has gone on in his personnel groupings. I mean, he used to have, when he first got to Texas, and maybe felt like he had to have more diversity and variety to give him a schematic advantage. But, I mean, last year it makes sense. You didn't see as much of the pony package, but the pony package has been money. I think this year, to your point, that should and will come back as one of the staples. You should see that as at a 10% rate with Relique Brown and Hollywood Smothers in the backfield, something like that. And I think, honestly, I'd like to see them decrease, like you said, to 12 personnel and go with more 11, go with more 20 with 2 backs, 3 wide receivers on the field, no tight end. I know Sark don't like to do that. He says tight end, second most important position in his offense behind quarterback. So he doesn't like to do that. And his second most utilized personnel grouping is 12 personnel. But this season, I'm with you with the development of a Nick Townsend, and then you having a Michael Masunis and not really knowing what you have as a passing threat out of either one of those guys. I don't know. I would lean on other personnel groupings. I'm with you. I think that
the other thing that I thought of when we talked about this topic and got ready to record, this could be the most. And look, Sark, even you go back to 21 and even last year where the personnel wasn't up to snuff like it was in 23 and 24. Sark traditionally has been really good out of empty. This has the potential to be the most effective he's been out of empty because of the versatility. I think it's how deep you are at receiver. But I just go back to the versatility you've got at running back. And if he can really unlock Hollywood Smothers as a receiver and utilize Raleek Brown's skill set, I mean, you could be in a 2-back set with no tight ends. You could be lethal out of empty because everybody's a threat at that point.
And a dual threat quarterback.
Exactly. And that
is the most I don't know there's anything that threatens the defense more than empty with a dual threat quarterback to defend. I mean, it's almost an impossibility.
And that's the trump card because it's kind of off subject a little bit. I went and CJ Vogel inspired this with CJ looking back at short yardage. I was like, let me look at the red zone because it turned out that Arch was basically your most effective short yardage option. Basically, we'll talk about that on the channel this weekend, and I'll let CJ do the deep dive. I was like, man, I want to see if I can see a trend here. And boy, did I find one. Texas scored 30 red zone touchdowns this year in 13 games. Arch Manning accounted for 24 of those, 16 passing, 7 rushing, and he did have 1 receiving touchdown.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah,
so, yeah, and Nick Townsend had 1 of those rushing touchdowns that you had. So basically, your running back room only accounted for 5 red zone touchdowns.
Wow.
I would think Rod Sark will probably get – I would venture Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown and Derek Cooper, those 3 guys are probably going to combine for more than 5 red zone touchdowns.
Yeah, those guys combined last year for 5 targets of 10-plus yards. So we're interesting to see. Talking about Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown. They didn't have a lot. How about this? Jaden Blue had 11 10-plus yard targets in 2024. That's double the amount of those Hollywood Brown and Raleek Smothers. The Hollywood Smothers and Raleek Brown combined, because they only have Pro Football Focus says 5 combined. So Sark will have to develop that part of their game. It can't happen because we saw it from Keelan Robinson. There at one point, Keelan Robinson was only catching stuff out of the backfield, and then slowly but surely started moving him down the field a little bit more, catching some passes down the field. So I think that's a big part of the game too. Can you unlock different parts of these guys' game? Can you unlock the yak area of Cam Coleman's game? Because he has not been a very productive receiver in terms of yak. Can you unlock him in the red zone? Because Auburn couldn't even utilize him in the red zone. They were so inept there as well. So there are different ways. I think not only can you utilize what we know, the known traits and quantities about these players, but there's also the upside that they haven't tapped into yet that you should be able to maximize, and that will give you a better return on your investment with this offense.
To that end, like 2 things. One, to me, like Hollywood Smothers could be a 40-plus catch guy. Like I think he's that gifted with the ball in his hands. And again, I know NC State mostly used him on checkdowns and things, but like I just think the way Sark loves getting the backs involved in the pass game, the screen game comeback. We didn't see a ton of screens last year. I think probably because Trey Wisner, I think, was your best running back at running screens, and he was hurt for a decent chunk of the year. So the screen game with the backs coming back. But we mentioned all these guys, Rod, and we're not even talking about, hey, does he unlock something with Michael Terry this year at running back? So you get really deep into the personnel, and hopefully this will fire up Sark's imagination to the point where we get the most diverse, tough to defend, unpredictable in a good way Texas offense we've seen under Sark.
Yep, agreed. All right, let's thank our sponsor, Laura Baker, before we end today's program. Thank you very much to Laura Baker, accomplished Austin realtor Laura Baker. She can handle all of your real estate needs in the Austin area, and we appreciate her for being a longtime sponsor of Football Theory. Football Theory brought to you by accomplished Austin realtor Laura Baker and the Andy Allen team at Keller Williams. Like I said, they'll handle all of your needs. If you have any real estate needs or concerns or questions in the Austin area, give her a shout. She is a longtime Austin real estate expert and also a die-hard lifetime Longhorn. Laura at andyallenteam.com is how you reach out to her, or you can give her a call at 512-784-0505. That's 512-784-0505. Thank you very much to Laura Baker and her team for being a part of our team here at On Texas Football. All right. Thank you, Jeff. Great stuff as always. Good conversation. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes, twisting and tweaking it out. And thank you to each and every one of you out there for watching and for listening. And for Jeff and for Matthew, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Until next time, hook 'em horns.